Hello, and welcome back to Cook's Kitchen. Today we're going to be taking a tender Irish dish and make it just melt in your mouth. That's right, today we're making Lenov Chalypin. Lenov is the Irish word for child, so we're going to be using the loin piece of a 1-year-old, and we're going to be applying some chalypin cooking techniques and a few others to make it more tender than you could imagine. But more on that in just a bit. Let's go ahead and get to our first step. Cutting the meat. The first step to making this dish is to go ahead and grab your loin, cut it out of the package, ditch the package, and cut the fat cap off. Keep the fat cap, however, because it will be used later. Next, we're going to go ahead and cut the meat and we're going to cube it. So go ahead and slice it into about 1-inch slices. Now with these thick slices, we're going to actually cut in between and separate the dark and light meat so we can get rid of that fat in between. Go ahead and separate your cubed meat, I have that to the left, and your fat, which I have to my right. And we're actually going to go ahead and leave this alone for a minute and let's go prepare the brine. To make the brine, you're going to need honey, soy sauce, and 3 cloves of garlic. Mince and smash your garlic and put it into a measuring cup. Fill your measuring cup with soy sauce until it's about at 3/4 of a cup. Add honey to your mixture until it reads to be exactly 1 cup in your measuring cup. Put the mixture into a gallon Ziploc bag. Go ahead and take your Lenov meat and the fat you cut off of it and put it into the brine. Close it up, get as much air out as you can, and shake it up until it's all mixed together well. Go ahead and put it in the fridge because we're going to let it brine for about 2 hours. Oh, you're back right on time. So let's go ahead and get our meat out of the fridge real quick. Alright, so for this step, you're going to need a baking dish at least 1 inch deep. We're going to take the meat, put it in the dish, and we're going to bake it at 250 degrees for about an hour. Once you have your meat in your dish, go ahead and cover it with foil. Get the sides as tight as they can be. Perfect. And slap it right into your oven. Now that our meat's in the oven, let me go ahead and go into detail about why exactly this dish is going to be so tender. The first aspect of tenderness actually ties into the history of the meat itself. Back in the 1700s, Ireland was going through a terrible economic depression. Irish parents were often forced to beg for money and food to feed their family. One day, an anonymous Irish man did some number crunching and found a solution. If families sold their excess 1-year-old children to the meat market for money, it would stimulate the economy, fix the food shortage, and squash overpopulation. At first, everyone ignored this idea, calling it crazy. Then, 1 or 2 communities picked it up. 1 or 2 communities became 10 to 20. 10 to 20 turned to all of Ireland. All of Ireland turned to Europe, and Europe became the whole world. This new tender meat became a staple in the Irish diet. But the reason why the meat is so tender is much like veal and baby venison, the meat hasn't had time to build up those muscles. Muscles are built up by being broken down and healing back up, which toughens the meat. With our meat being harvested at such a young age, we don't really run into that problem. The chalypin cooking style aims to take a tough piece of meat and apply the enzyme proteases, which are going to help break down those proteins. Honey has these enzymes in them. We're also going to be using soy sauce, which has a high concentration of sodium. And what that sodium is going to do is it's going to get in the meat, it's going to help break down those proteins even further, and it's going to keep the meat juicy. Last but not least, we're going to be actually cooking this meat at a low temperature over a long period of time, much like a roast, which will keep the meat from tensing up because it won't be experiencing that rapid heat change. Now, while we wait for the meat to cook, we're going to go ahead and start making our sides. Today I'm making rice and asparagus. You can make whatever you want because the sides aren't really important. What's important is the main part of this dish, and that's the meat.
All right,
So the last thing we're gonna do is we're actually gonna take the meat out of the oven, put it into the pan, do a little movie magic. Once it's in the pan, dust it with a little bit of flour. Not too much though. This flour is gonna help thicken the sauce. Let it come up to a simmer, let the sauce thicken, and you're ready to plate. Go ahead once the sauce is thickened up, plate your dinner. And remember, if when you're cooking this and it turns out that it's too salty, don't be afraid to add a little bit more honey while it's in this last simmering phase. If it's a bit too sweet, don't be afraid to add more soy sauce. So, there you have it, the finished product of Lenov Chalyapin. Thanks for tuning into this week's Cook's Kitchen. If you're interested in checking out some of my other recipes, click the links down below. And if you are interested in something new, come back next week and I'm sure we'll find something great to make you.